Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fanzone Debate, and welcome to the final act. We are here for a very exciting title match in Fanzone Debate. I'm your host, Tim Bercala. I got two great judges with me. First, Mark Menchaca. Mark, how are you doing, my friend? And what are you having for dinner, and is it delicious?
Oh, I purposely stopped so we do this. It was a roast, some scalloped potatoes. You and Cody just always like to point out I eat a lot on camera. Just what it is.
It's okay with me.
Fandom match, yeah, a fandom match. Good lord, the fan zone match here we're doing today. Great, Kirk, Brian, leading up to this for a long time. Very excited. I just really want to get into it.
I gotta ask. I know I just said I was gonna keep it short, but I gotta ask. Slow cooker, or
It's always in the crock pot, 100%.
In the crock pot. No, yeah, there you go. Coho is here as well. Coho, welcome back to the judges' seat. How are you doing, my friend? And what do you think of the matchup?
Good. I'm excited to be here for this one. I've been in the judges' seat for both these guys, I think, more than once this year. So I'm excited to see them today in the title match. This will be fun.
Yeah, we saw these two they did fight in the contender match. I was going to say they did, and then I missed it. They fought in the contender match. It went down 3-2, and then that's what made Brian go on to play Cody. So Kirk had a big, strong lead up in that tournament earlier this year to get to the contender match. He made his way to another contender match at the end of the year to beat Jacoby and win that one, and now he's going up against Brian. So Brian has defended the belt one time against Robert Kastner. Very, very good match. That was a super exciting one to be a part of, but I think this one should hopefully be even better. Let's go talk to the players real quick. We'll start by talking to Kirk. Kirk, you're no stranger to the title match arena, but this year you had to work for it a little bit harder than in the past, because last year you didn't get to play as much. This year you got a lot of regulation play, a lot of regular matches, and now you finally made it back to the title match, and it's against the guy who took you out last time. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited. I said after I beat Jacoby that part of me regretted it just because there's a peace and tranquility to losing in Fanzone. But now that I'm here, I'm glad I'm here. I'm fired up. I got that. I feel good about it. Beating Jacoby was a big kind of confidence boost for me. Holtzman, even though I won that match, it was rough for me. So I was a little nervous about where I was game-wise going into Jacoby. So I feel confident. I got to play Brian once. I've seen him play, defend his title now, fight for the championship. So hopefully I've learned from my mistakes when I played him last time, and I bring something to the table that'll get me over the top.
Absolutely. Just to update everybody, Maggie's worried that she's going to eat all of Ellie's graham cracker bunnies.
That's always a problem as a parent.
It's a problem right now, and I just wanted to let everybody at home know.
But I'll say too, like I feel like I really hope to just give a good match, like make this a really good match, because I feel like honestly this has probably been the best season of Fanzone ever. So this being the final match, I really hope to put that cherry on top. Of course, that's only if I lose. I want it to be a good match. I have no problem with Brian crapping the bed and me winning 4 points in a row. That'll be fun too. So we'll see how it goes.
That's totally fair. We'll see in the match. Let's talk to Brian. Brian, you and Kirk have played already this season. You're playing him again. I know one of your goals was just to defend that belt one time, but do you kind of want to see you beating Kirk again? Like, what are your thoughts here coming into this one?
Well, obviously I want to win. A rematch with Kirk was inevitable. It was just a matter of how soon I was going to meet up with him again. And it turns out to be now, and that's fine. But I really want this one to go well because I wasn't happy with my last debate really at all. It's the first time I kind of felt pressure. I felt like I had to meet expectations, how prove it wasn't just a fluke and get that defense in. And my nerves got to me and had me stumbling a little bit. So now I got that defense out of the way. I really feel no pressure anymore. I got my one defense. So anything more as far as additional wins is just a bonus for me. If I win, great. If I lose, it sucks. I want to win, but it's really no embarrassment to lose to Kirk because he's obviously one of the best debaters they have around here. So like him, I hope it's just a good debate. And I don't want either of us to crap the bed because that gets messy.
That does get messy. I'm excited because whoever wins, I have a friend who won a match, and whoever loses, I get to have you judge again. So it's very exciting for me either way. So guys, let's get into the match. Here's how it's going to work. Because it is a title match, there are going to be 5 prep questions, 3 chosen by the champion, 2 from the challenger. We gave them questions based on those categories that they chose, and they're going to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. So how it's going to work, they're each going to get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Mark, Coho, and I will write on our handy-dandy boards who we thought won the debate. 2 out of 3 votes wins you a point, and because it is a title match, the first person to 4 points wins the match. If we are at a 3-2 coming out of the 5 prep questions, we will go to a bonus round. There will be 2 bonus round questions should we need them. Gentlemen, any questions as we start off this title match?
Good luck, Kirk.
Good luck.
Let's kick it off. All righty. We are going to kick this off with the first category, which was drafted by Brian in the category of directors. Your question is, what is the best directed action movie of the 1990s? I don't like how that looks. I'm going to find a way to change it. It's different, and I hate it. Gentlemen, we're going to kick this off. Brian, you get to start. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking. I will come in to give you a 10-second warning when the time comes.
So as action films go, the Best Picture winning Braveheart was an epic undertaking. The sheer scope and scale of the action sequences is incredible. And this is especially in a time before CGI crowds like those used in later films like Lord of the Rings. Everything here was real. Enormous cast of extras, hundreds of horses, practical stunts, insane battles, all managed and directed masterfully by Mel Gibson. The action builds within each scene itself, but also from sequence to sequence. From his first tussles with guards while trying to escape with Murren, to the first uprising, to multiple smaller attacks and climaxing in the Battle of Stirling, which might just be the best battlefield scene of all time, and preceded by one of the greatest pre-battle speeches of all time. It's absolutely epic and brutal and realistic and chaotic, but it's controlled chaos. Gibson's direction ensured that it's always still clear what's going on, the geography of the scene and the main players, while managing massive literal armies of people. That one scene alone is 20 incredible minutes of filmmaking on technical and storytelling levels. There are still more action scenes that follow that in the movie that are just as well done, but this is the centerpiece, the main event. Directing a movie that has this kind of scale, but still centers on emotion and characters requires great skill, and Gibson was up to the task.
Time. All right. We're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
For the best directed action scene of the 90s, I went with one of the just best or directed movies of the 90s. I went with one of the best movies in the 90s in general, which is Michael Mann's Heat. The direction of this movie is impeccable. Obviously the action scenes are first and foremost. We think about the bank shootout, the heist, the beginning. They are just so tightly directed and controlled. Every minute means something. You know exactly what people are doing, why, what they're trying to achieve, and it's just such a monumental taking to do something like that in an action scene. Beyond the action, there is so many great smaller moments, character moments. My man gets the best performances, not only out of great legends like Pacino and De Niro, but a lot of more journeyman level actors who he really gets the best out of doing some really great techniques with the camera and with his filmmaking skills. It's 3 hours, but it's super well paced. You never get bored. There's always something going on, and man is always doing something with the camera, with locations to keep you interested, and that is why it's the best directed film in the 90s.
Time. Okie dokie. 2 great films. All right. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So I'm not naive. I knew that as soon as the judges heard the picks, they're thinking that Heat is the better film. And it is a great film. But in this debate, we're looking at these films through the lens of specifically as an action film. Braveheart's action is not just empty action. Gibson's action tells a story, conveys emotion, even in the midst of this chaotic battle, like when Wallace finds he's been betrayed by Robert the Bruce, and Bruce's ensuing guilt that drives him to help Wallace escape. That's a credit to the direction. The action in Heat is for me, lacking in any emotional resonance. It's cool action. It's cool to look at, but it's just standard cops chasing robbers. The best scene in Heat takes place as a conversation in a diner. It's a great scene, but it doesn't contribute to my opinion of him as an action director.
Well, it's an action film directed, not just the action scenes. It's the entire movie. And while you're leaning heavily on your action scenes, I understand why. But there's a lot of problems with it. Yeah, logistically, it's impressive. He got all those people together, but he doesn't make use of it. In those scenes, the extras look confused. They don't know what to do. And those battle scenes are tedious. It's, cut off leg, edit, cut off head, edit, cut off arm, edit. It's just the same thing over and over again. And I disagree with you that we understand the sense of scope and purpose. I think it's just edit, sword swing, over and over and over again. Where with the action scenes in Heat, it are, very much like I said, they're focused. You know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it and what the goals. And I also disagree about emotion. I think there's very much you feel in that scene, the emotion. They're trying to protect each other, take care of each other. So if you want to talk just action, I think it's a better action movie, but there's also a lot more it does superior to Braveheart beyond that.
Well, yes, the whole movie is a factor, but we are focusing on the action here. Because if you ask me, like, which of two movies is the better movie, and then which of two movies is the better action movie, those could be different questions, because what you're looking at something as an action movie. So that is what I'm focusing on here. And it's funny that you talk about the extras in mind, who are doing their job. They're playing the battle. They're doing what they should be doing. There are scenes in Heat, like even in the main shootout in Heat, there's scenes where shots where you can see up the road at cars just driving by, pedestrians walking around, business as usual, like they're not hearing automatic gunfire explosions back here. In the opening heist of the armored truck, where there's giant explosions go off and gunshots and smoke's billowing up, and there's explosions that knock out windows. It's so loud, and yet there's, like I said, there's still cars driving by. This auto dealership, by the way, which apparently has no customers or employees in the middle of the day. And again, you can see just pedestrians milling around like across the street when they have certain shots. It's like, as a director, you should notice those kind of things, have those cropped out, or have those extras do what they're supposed to be doing.
I think those may have been on purpose, because this is LA. This violence is normal, but also cars are driving by. You won't expect them to stop where the shooting is. They're trying to get away. And I understand why you're leaning on action film, because beyond that, Braveheart doesn't have much. The personal moments, I think Mel Gibson used some very amateurish director tricks. Your heartstrings are pulled on by slow motion and loud bagpipe music. I don't think there's a lot there. I think he leans very heavily into the Christ analogy. That final torture scene is just a preamble to Passion of the Christ, and also goes along and just, hey, look how bad this guy's suffering. And he doesn't know how to make it tight and compact and get to the point the way man does in Heat.
Tight and compact is not things I'd use to describe Heat. I enjoy Heat, but that movie is bloated far more than it needs to be. I mean, a man tries to inject it with more depth beyond just cops and robbers, because he has Pacino's home life and he has De Niro's dating life, both of which have no impact on the real story here. There's superfluous characters and subplots like Natalie Portman as the stepdaughter and Hank Azaria's character, which further just pad the runtime. And you do feel the length because of those things. When the movie is on fire, it's great. But when it's not, you definitely feel like things that could have been removed.
I totally disagree. Those home life stories are the story. It's the two sides of the coin. You see how these guys are living their life. And that's what's great about this movie, is that there are great action scenes and big moments, but you also have these great character moments where you're learning about these guys. And it's not just in the performance. There's so much direction, the way man uses the camera, the way he frames scenes. For example, that scene at the metal exchange, where it's not a very exciting scene. It's not like a big action scene, but there's so much going on. The way De Niro hides in the shadows, and the way when they hear the noise, they show that both of them look at each other, even though they're not really looking at each other. There's a lot of cool things there to connect these characters. And those little moments would make these, which with Braveheart, the exact opposite. There's not a lot of character stuff except love story, freedom.
The whole movie is character stuff. Yes, there's love story, but it's also between him and Brendan Gleeson's character, between the different characters, between him and Robert the Bruce, all these character interactions. As far as characters, your director should have done a better job of reining in Al Pacino, from going full devil's advocate Al Pacino in those scenes, like when he's yelling, "She's got a great ass," all bug-eyed and acting crazy. It's like, that does not fit in this movie. He should have directed him better. And that director, and as far as the Braveheart goes, there is plenty of other things beyond the action. The cinematography is phenomenal. I believe it won, or at least was nominated for an Academy Award for that. The music is phenomenal in it. You call it just bagpipe music. Well, yours is just kind of drums and percussion half the time, and dissonant sounds like man likes to use. Mine has everything yours has as far as quality direction.
I disagree. I think there are some good character moments, but I think that's mostly in the script. I don't think Gibson does anything to improve that through the camera. I think it's charisma of the actors, where he does do things character-based, direct to make the direction better.
Okay, Kirk, we are going to kick off the closing with you. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Again, Brian is trying to make this debate all about action because that's really all he has, and even his action is not great. The scenes are tedious, they're overlong, they're self-indulgent, and I really have no sense of place with them. According to this movie, Scotland is one giant green field. That's all you get in this entire movie. Where Man, he directs action. They use that shootout scene. The Marines use that scene to teach tactical movement and reloading because of how accurate it is. But you also get those great, there's that great action, that great intensity to it. The performances are fantastic. You have Pacino going big, but you also have those quiet moments with him hugging the girl's mother who died. So you have really great character moments there. But again, it's all through Man's direction and the way he uses that and the way he puts that together and builds those characters alongside each other, culminating in that diner scene, which is also very well directed, that's conversation, but also juxtaposing the character and the action, which is something that a self-indulgent, amateurish movie like Braveheart just doesn't do.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Brian. Brian, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Braveheart is the only 90s film classified on Letterboxd as action that was even nominated for Best Picture or Best Directing, and it won that Oscar as well as Best Picture. Gibson was recognized by everyone from Critics' Choice to his peers in the Directors Guild. This same year, Heat got 0 nominations from any major awards body for picture or directing. Now, awards are by no means the end-all, be-all measure of great direction. But if you were discussing most successful movies, you'd look at box office. If you were discussing most popular movies, polls and lists would come into play. And when you're discussing what is considered the best, like it or not, awards recognition from academies, critics, and peers is one factor to consider. Yes, the category picked was action directors. We are comparing them as action movies. Heat's action totals less than 15 minutes in its almost 3-hour runtime, and there's nothing particularly impressive about the direction of those action aspects of the film. That film's strengths lie in the conversations and the interpersonal drama. I love Heat too, but we aren't being asked which film we like more, and not which director we like more. Based on the work itself, Braveheart is a masterpiece of directing, especially in terms of the action, which is the question we're being asked.
Time. Okay, great. Love this. Bucky, you want to judge?
That's Fanzone next year. We're just doing coin flips.
I feel like it's like really wow. God.
Yes, it's only 7:25, Maggie. Thank you for sharing that with the crew. This is gonna air at noon. How could you? Why are you Mr. Final Act? Is what I want to know. I thought that might have been Nick, but that's Payson. My God. You're gonna have to wait a minute.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, is that like a joke that he's Mr. Final Act and I don't know about the joke? Is that the thing?
He just did it. I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay, it looks like we're all ready. This was tough, which I just realized that both of them, I wonder if both of them are like, oh, I have this in the bag. Like the other person sucked. And then we're sitting here like, it was so tough. And they're like mad at us. I went with
mad at you either way. So
I went with Brian. This was honestly more of a coin flip for me. Joke, no pun intended with the joke there. But he almost lost me. He was going on a little bit too long on the awards and all, and the comparisons and how it should be. Like, yeah, I don't disagree, but also like he almost lost me there. But I felt like they both did a good job of telling me why their respective scenes, action scenes and scenes beyond the action were good. Kirk leaned or fell pretty hard into the taking down of Braveheart, of how it's like amateurish, and how the scenes beyond, or the action scenes, aren't directed that well, whereas like Brian didn't necessarily like try to take down Heat's action scenes, but everything else around it, like there are scenes with Al Pacino that are over the top and crazy, and it should have been better directed. So I think both were pretty even across the board. I went with Brian, I think, at the end of the day, because I think Brian nailing in on the action part of it kind of lent me a little further, and I felt like his scale, like the way he was talking about the scale of his action scenes and how they were pulled off, just tipped it over the edge. So if this is how it's going to be all night, woof. Mark, your thoughts? Am I cuckoo?
I mean, I didn't think so. I also know Brian. Yeah, this is really close. I hate like kind of giving a deliberation to this, because I don't really feel like almost 100% times this is like super helpful, just because like both of them are really good. I'm not really sure where it could have gone. I think at the end, I think Brian I think he spotlighted a few of Heat's downfalls. I think a little bit better. Just gave him the slight edge there, and I also just kind of leaned into kind of the grandiose of him showing the grandiose of Braveheart's action just a little bit more than Heat.
Okay, Coho, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I actually went with Kirk. I thought that Kirk's arguments against Braveheart with the action, about how a better director could have maybe handled some of that scale a little bit better. About the cheap tricks he used to make you feel certain ways, and also how he hammered in the rest of Braveheart doesn't work. And Brian didn't really give me much in defense of why the rest of Braveheart, let alone the action, really worked. So I really stand by Kirk's take.
Okay. All right. So Brian wins the first point. We are going to move on to the next question in the category of James Bond. This was drafted by Kirk. The question is, who is the best non-MI6 character in a Roger Moore James Bond film? Kirk, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think the best character from Bond movie starring Roger Moore is Milos Colombo from Your Eyes Only. Colombo's only seen the second out of the movie. The first out of the movie, he's talked about, and he's kind of set up as a villain, and you're kind of just wondering, asking questions about this guy. And then slowly, as the truth unfolds, you find out he's not the villain of the movie, but he's definitely not a good guy. He's a former underground fighter for the Greek resistance in World War II. He became a smuggler, and he's involved in other clandestine operations. He is funny and he's charming, but he's also a man of action, and he has a real dark side to him. So essentially what this guy is, it's really cool. He's a Bond. He's everything that makes up a Bond villain. But he's working with Bond, and it makes for a really cool dynamic and a really cool character. And of course, he's played greatly by the always charismatic, always entertaining Topol of Fiddler on the Roof fame, and just all those things together make this a really great character.
Time. Okay. Kirk, thank you. We're going to move over to Brian. Brian, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Since his first introduction, fans have embraced Jaws as one of their fan favorite characters in the franchise. He's memorable and unique in a series that can often seem very cookie cutter. He's big at over 7 feet tall. He looks kind of like Michael Shannon with a wonky chromosome. He has incredible strength, tearing the roofs off vehicles with his bare hands. He's a great tracker, always finding Bond and showing up wherever he is. He's unkillable and keeps on coming like the Terminator of the Bond franchise. Then there's the classic metal teeth. He can bite through anything: chains, metal bars, cables, sharks. He even uses them to kill people by biting their jugulars, the closest thing the Bond franchise has to a vampire. But he's not one-dimensional. Jaws is one of the rare secondary Bond characters who has an arc, becoming an ally by the end of Moonraker when he realized he doesn't fit into Drax's master race plan, and even getting a love interest in the end. Jaws has continued to resonate with audiences and become part of pop culture, regularly referenced and spoofed in movies, TV shows, and video games. He's just a great character and a lasting fan favorite for good reason.
Okay. That wonky chromosome line really got me. Okay. Guys,
Yeah, it's really
5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
You're selling this romantic subplot and arc. It's more than it is. It's a joke. It's a complete joke, and it kind of completely undermines anything they did with the character. And that's the problem with him. They set him up as this big, tough guy to fight Bond, but he becomes comedic relief in a era of the franchise where comedic relief is the worst part of it. You call him the Terminator, he's more of a Wile E. Coyote. And he's as strong as he is, he's very easy for Bond to beat, and he doesn't represent the challenge that you would think based on what he looks like.
I didn't build up this romantic subplot. I had one sentence saying that he happened to get the girl at the end of the film. So let's not overemphasize that. And yes, he was unkillable. Yes, often a little more comedically like Wile E. Coyote, but he wasn't killable. He survived an Egyptian structure collapsing on him, being crushed between a van and a wall, being electrocuted, kicked off a moving train, driving a car off a cliff and exploding, falling with a faulty parachute in a circus net, crashing a cable car, going over a waterfall, and then he was attacked by a shark. He bites the freaking shark to death. That makes him a great, fun character to watch.
Yeah, he comes back, but again, what he's doing while he's doing these things, he doesn't, like, they don't use his strength. You know, they set him up as this big physical challenge for Bond, but he doesn't use that. There's a scene in Moonmaker where literally he's about to fight Bond in an alley, and a group of drunken partygoers come out and literally brush Jaws aside and just cancel the entire fight because these little people push him aside. He doesn't use the strength or the toughness. You call him a tracker. He doesn't track. He just is where he needs to be because he doesn't have a character. He has no loyalty. He has no motivation. So he just can be whatever the movie needs him to be. He doesn't track Bond. He's just there because there's nothing to him.
The people didn't push him away so much as all these people showed up, and so he chose not to try to kill him right there in front of all these witnesses and things. My problem with Milos is he's not even the most interesting character in that movie. Melina, Kristatos, played by Julian Glover, who I love. Even BB, the figure skater, is more memorable than Milos. Milos is barely in it. His longest scene is sitting there watching Bond climb up a mountain. And then Kristatos just kicks him down the stairs towards the end, and he was practically out. He barely struggles to get up and shoot, and he acted like he's been mortally wounded.
Well, we're not talking about screen time. If you want to talk about the way you use Jaws screen time, we can. But his little bit of screen time is great. He gets the killing blow on Kristatos after being shot and stabbed. His action scenes are great because he's always so cool under pressure. He's just kind of just eating those pistachios and walking around, and all those characters, if you think they're more interesting, great, you could have picked those as well. But I think he is definitely the most interesting character, even though he's not in it that much. Even when he's not on screen, they're talking about him, and that makes him interesting. As far as Jaws screen time, again, the things he is doing, even though they set him up as this big monster, he's doing so many generic things. There's a scene where he's just leaning out a car and shooting a machine gun, or standing on a boat and shooting a machine gun. Things that literally any generic no-name henchman could do. He doesn't live up to the one thing he has, which is his unique look.
But at least he's doing something. Milos is hardly doing anything the whole movie. When we take his shooting, he's not shooting any more than like the other soldiers that are along with him. He doesn't stand out. And let's talk about Milos for a second as a person, because Milos' last scene, I want to say, is Bond saying that BB, the teenage figure skater, found a new sponsor as she's tending to his wounds. And he gives this creepy ass wink and nod to Bond. I mean, even sex addict James Bond wasn't going for the underage girl, and this creepy ass dude is somebody who you want to call the best character.
I think you're again. I think you're reading too much into that. But also, like I said, this isn't he wasn't a good guy. That was the whole point. He was an anti-hero. He was a villain. But the thing is, you're talking about, he just shows up and shoots. He ignores it. Bond needs him. Bond uses him through the entire movie. Bond needs him. He's the one that sets up the invasion on Kristatos. He tells him everything that Kristatos does and what he's going to do. And not only is he the mastermind behind it, but he's on the front lines fighting with his men. He's in the gunfight. He's in the shot. Like I said, he gets the killing blow. He's one step ahead of Bond. You know, when Bond first meets him, he's recording Bond's conversations and following Bond around and tracking Bond and using what Bond thinks about him and the ideas he has against him and sending his women after him and whatnot. Milos is doing a lot in this movie. He's a mastermind, but he's also a physical presence.
Yeah, I just don't think he stands out to me, but that's fine. And everything you talk about him, like early on, we talk about he's being a smuggler in World War II and things like that, was all just said in one throwaway line and then never really referenced the rest of the film. With Jaws, the thing about him is, yes, you could think of him as a big dumb henchman, but he's not dumb. One of the first times you see him, he's on to Bond. He knows Bond has followed him into the van. He's listening in on him. He knows he's following him to Egypt, and he lures them into a trap. And then in his last scenes, when he finds out Drax's master race plan, he turns on him. He's not just a big dumb mute. He's silent by choice, uttering his only line at the very end when he does get the girl.
He actually gets suckered in by Bond because he's already been recruited into Drax's master race. He's been a part of it. He's been teamed up with the pigtail girl. He's part of that. He's involved. And Bond tricks him because he's stupid into turning. And again, he can turn because he has no motivation. He can just do whatever. He's not a character that has a purpose to do anything.
Time. Okay, Brian, you get to kick off the closings. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
When people think of what they like about Roger Moore era Bond movies, they frequently name Jaws near or at the top of every list. Hell, one Letterboxd reviewer called The Spy Who Loved Me potentially one of the best Bond movies ever, and specified, Jaws is great as the unstoppable henchman, and he even brings a little bit of horror element, which is a nice touch. That reviewer's name? Kirk Kowalkowski. Absolutely no one says, you know what I love about the Bond movies? Milos Colombo. Anyone not studying this movie for trivia wouldn't even remember who he is. He's a one-shot, forgettable, borderline background character that barely plays a part in the story, except to be a very brief red herring. The closest thing he has to personality traits are eating pistachios and giving rapey vibes as he winks at an underage girl. Jaws is unique, he's memorable, and he has had lasting impact. He's become the prototype for everything from Non and Superman 2 to the head thugs that Indiana Jones fights in each of his films. But he's actually more intelligent than them even. He was the perfect embodiment of the tone of the Roger Moore era Bond films, leaned into the cheese. And that's why he has remained a fan favorite Bond character for decades.
Time. Okay, we're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Brian did a good job of selling Jaws as a great image of the Bond franchise, and he is. He's a great action figure, a T-shirt, or a poster. But as a character, there's not much to him. You know, Brian sold him as this big, strong, powerful henchman. I've given you examples of how they didn't put that to use. Brian you talked about his unique abilities. I've given you examples of times where he was just a generic henchman. The guy has no personality. He has no character. He has no motivation. He has no loyalties. There's nothing to him. There are better Teehee in Live and Let Die is a better version of this big, strong guy because he at least has something to him. Milos is a mastermind who is on pace with Bond, who is on his level, who operates him, who's one step ahead of Bond, who Bond uses in this movie as an ally because he has all the inside information that he needs. But also, like I said, he is a man of action. He gets involved with his men. He gets into killing blow. And even though those things are only talked about with his past, it's still part of his character and makes him the most interesting, best character.
Okay. Hoopla. Okay. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Coho, kick it off.
I went with Brian. I think Brian did a better job with me, just selling me on his character, and I think Kirk's takedowns didn't quite land with Brian's defenses. I also really liked Brian's closing, so yeah, I give Brian a couple points for that.
For what?
For his closing. Sorry.
Oh, fair.
I have dogs chomping on this end. My bad.
Okay. I went the other way. I went with Kirk. Yeah, it's an uphill battle. I think that Kirk's closing though actually was what won me over. Talking about how it's not just what the poster child is of the franchise, it's what is the best character. And I thought Kirk did a really good job of talking about why Jaws is actually not a great character, might be like a memorable one, because it's in a couple movies, or like, he mentioned a few times like he looks cool, his image is cool, but the character itself is pretty boring and useless and nothing. And I thought he did a good job of pulling up his character. I realize now in my talking, I haven't said much about Brian, but I thought Brian did a great job too. But I thought that Kirk got it for me. So, Mark, you're deciding it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's usually me who ends up picking the loser here. But I'd also go to Kirk.
Oh wow,
done. Yeah, there was a not to say like didn't I was there the whole time, but like there was a specific moment where I think like Kirk just like landed a blow that I don't really feel like there just wasn't a lot like Brian could do at that point. It was that moment where Brian brought up Columbo being a creep, and then Kirk found a way to just kind of wiggle out of that of like, well, like he's not supposed to be likable. That's his character. Like I don't know how he did that. It was one of those okay. He somehow was able to pull that. He also did a really good job throughout, just kind of nailing Jaws, because even though Jaws is he I think is probably the first character we all think about for this, and I think just Kirk came to play and just kind of calling out the weaknesses here and found ways also to defend his character even when he probably shouldn't have been able to.
That's fair. All right, that means we are tied 1-1. We are going to move on to the next category, which was drafted by the champ in the category of Star Trek. The question is, which scene in the Star Trek Kelvin trilogy is the most exciting to watch? Brian, you're kicking this off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
In Star Trek Beyond, the Enterprise encounters a swarm of hundreds of small ships. They all move at incredible speeds, flowing like a flock of birds as they completely overpower the ship. The Enterprise is helpless to stop the attack. It's pure chaos. Their weapons are useless. This is an enemy unlike anything they've encountered before. The Enterprise is brutally and systematically torn apart like it's nothing, first losing the warp drive, then having its nacelles torn completely off. Scores of ships puncture and penetrate the Enterprise as the invading forces board the ship. Spock and Bones are trying to escape the invaders as Scotty attempts to restore power. Kirk goes up against our new villain, Krall. All the while, the ship is losing stability and people are running and sliding on walls and ceilings as it turns. The crew tries to escape in pods, but are just being systematically abducted by the attackers. The Enterprise is completely shredded to pieces like never before, as the saucer section plummets to the planet below, barely escaping burning up on re-entry. This sequence has it all. One-on-one confrontations, gun battles, space battles, mass destruction. It's edge-of-the-seat excitement from beginning to end.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute when you start talking. Oh, you know what? No, this was Brian's category, right?
Yeah, believe it or not, he picked Star Trek.
Holy shit. I just had a panic attack. I was like, hey, Kirk picked Star Trek, right? No. Okay, sorry. Kirk, go ahead with your opening. 1 minute.
I picked a scene a little bit later in Star Trek Beyond. This is when the Enterprise crew has found a new ship. The USS Franklin, an old style Federation ship, and they have figured out how to destroy the swarm. And they do it with the awesome tunes of Sabotage by the Beastie Boys plays, and they use the sound waves from that, however that works, to blow up the swarm and destroy them all. And finally, we see the payback from the destruction of the Enterprise. This unsurmountable force has been finally defeated. And then from there, it immediately goes into a chase scene in the Yorktown space station, which is a really cool space station that's built with like the centrifugal gravity, so there's no real up or down. So they're chasing through this space station with the buildings on top buildings as they're going through and coordinating, trying to find Krall and stop them from ports in Yorktown. The Franklin's underwater. It's just a really awesome battle scene, followed directly by a chase scene. Best of both worlds. Great action scene. Great action sequence.
Time. Okay. All right, guys. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So we've seen the Enterprise boarded before, and we've seen it destroyed before, but never like this. You've seen the Enterprise be obliterated like it's made of toilet paper, and watching these characters that we've grown with not only in these 3 films, but their past counterparts for decades, looking completely and utterly helpless at the hands of this film is exciting. And the whole scene is more visceral than any past Trek battles, and you can feel the ship being torn apart and the panic and helplessness of the crew.
Yeah, you said it yourself. We've seen this before, and that's the big problem here. When I watch this scene, I don't think, "Oh my goodness, the Enterprise is being destroyed. What's going to happen?" I thought, and this my literal thoughts the first time I watched this movie. I said, "Oh, this is the movie in this era where we get a new Enterprise." And lo and behold, in the movie we get a new Enterprise. So the stakes are really lowered when we know what's going on. It's like I said, destroying an Enterprise is a trope in these movies at this point. So there's nothing really that unique or exciting or mind-blowing about seeing the Enterprise get destroyed.
And you had seen it done before, but you've seen it done now better than you had before. And if you want to talk about just doing the same thing over again, let's address the use of sabotage. The idea of it's fun, but the same song, putting a present day rock song in the first time in Star Trek was kind of pandering to the audience, but doing it a second time is unimaginative and desperate, and it makes you roll your eyes. Mostly because of the fact the same song choice wasn't a callback by the characters, because this was Jayla's music. It wasn't Kirk picking the same song. Of all the songs in the history of music, including the 300 years between now and Star Trek time, they just happened to pick up the exact same song. It was just pandering.
It makes total sense to use sabotage and call that back, because if you brought just any random 20th century song into the scene, you'd have to stop and think, okay, why are they playing this particular song? But the fact that we've heard sabotage, we know, and even though the Kirk might not make the connection might be made by the characters, we make it the audience with Kirk, that it makes complete sense, and we can just go with it. And yeah, it's just, it's pandering, but it works, because when you hear that guitar riff goes, you are ready to go. And we were talking about most exciting scene. And if you want to get excited and pumped up, there's not too many songs that are going to do that for you beyond sabotage.
You admit it's pandering, and because it does make you roll your eyes, because you realize that from the audience, like, oh yes, they're playing the song again for the audience. It makes no sense within the context of the film. And the scene, when they use it, is visually cool to watch, but it's not exciting because, on the contrary, having the ships in their way just mass self-destruct basically because of the sound waves they put out. It clears the path for them, removes any danger, takes away the stakes and any potential excitement of having to fight their way through it. And the following chase segment that you talk about, it's barely a chase segment. It's cutting back and forth from the Franklin traveling underwater to Bones flying up above without any real action or excitement beyond flying straight until the ship comes up to the water at the very end of the scene.
Yeah, my scene is exciting. Them fighting the swarm in my scene is exciting because, like, yes, finally, and it is overkill because they're just blowing up everywhere. But those explosions are awesome, and it's cool. Like, yes, these are the guys that took out the Enterprise, and we're getting back at them now. Your scene actually sets up my scene and makes my scene more exciting because we're seeing them defeat this thing that was completely unstoppable before. As far as the chase scene goes, yeah, it's a little quicker, but it's very interesting because there are different locations, they're coordinating, they're doing things, and you're seeing things are just happening. It's always more exciting to see the heroes do things than to see things happen to the heroes.
Mine didn't set yours up to be more exciting. Mine set up this great, I think, that yours turned into something completely anticlimactic. There was no battle. There wasn't an exciting result to this. There was just like, let's just brush them all away in one stroke. And, you may cheer because the Enterprise goes through, but that doesn't make the scene exciting. My scene also includes the debut of the main villain, Krall, where he shows his dominance over them. And you get to experience emotion as well when Kirk looks out the window as the saucer's separating and realizes what's happening. Uhura, you see her face as she closes the door and she's stuck in there with Krall. And so all the characters, they're all separated. They're all in different places. You don't know who's going to survive, if they're going to survive, what's going to happen to them. And that makes this exciting on top of, yes, the awesome explosions and fun action scenes to watch.
You talk about the emotion that Kirk sees when he sees the ship being destroyed. Yes, that's the same emotion we saw when William Shatner watched the Enterprise get destroyed in Star Trek 3. I think that it works because, again, you're seeing that those explosions, and yes, it goes from big to small because they blow up the big swarm battle, and that's awesome. But then they got to go and they got to stop Krall himself from poisoning the Yorktown system. And I think that's what's cool about it is you get the big explosion. Okay, we've saved the outer thing. Now we got to go in. So, and you're talking about introducing Krall. He comes in and shoots a gun. It's not a big character moment or anything real exciting. You don't even really recognize him among the other people in that point because he's just wandering around. You don't know who he is yet. So there's not really exciting like, oh, this is the new big bad. He's just another guy shooting a gun.
And you're stopping of Krall, which you said it's building down to the the beating crawl. That doesn't happen till 2 scenes after the one that you were debating right now. There's a dead scene in between before you see
they're catching him.
actually
They're going to
crawl.
catch him, so they can't stop him.
Done. All right, Kirk, you are going to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Okay, we'll address sabotage first. Yeah, Brian, it doesn't make much sense to have a 20th century song playing in the Enterprise. It doesn't matter. It's what's excited, what's gets you fired up, what gets you going for the scene, and what's going to get you excited. It's a great action soundtrack, regardless of context. So, yeah, it might be a cheat code to put it in there, but it works. Like I said, the Enterprise instruction is not exciting because we've seen it before. We've seen it different ways. This one doesn't really do much more. It's not about the emotion we've seen. First of all, emotion is not exciting, but we've seen that emotion before. I think, like I said, his scene sets mine up because it's more exciting. The Yorktown is the weaker vessel compared to the Enterprise, and they got to use this weaker vessel to stop something that already destroyed the Enterprise, and they do it, and they pull it off, and it's awesome. Then you have that chase scene. Yes, they don't stop crawling that scene, but that's how they catch him so they could go get him and eventually stop him. They wouldn't be able to stop him without that chase scene. The chase scene is awesome. Like I said, there's so many things going on, and they're coordinating. Again, it is more exciting to see your heroes doing something, accomplishing something, than to see something happening to them.
Time. Okay, let's go over to Brian. Brian, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
So Kirk, my opponent Kirk, is an OG Trek guy, so he probably hates actual excitement in his Star Trek anyway. I'm sure it pained him to argue for an exciting scene. But the sabotage scene, while cool to see, doesn't fit the bill. The effect of having all the ships just self-destruct takes away the danger, therefore leaving it cool but not exciting. And it's anchored by a recycled song that is not an intentional callback by the crew, but rather a 1 in a billion coincidence. It's randomly chosen as the song to play without any knowledge of its previous significance. It does matter that it doesn't make sense when it takes you out of the film. And the following chase segment isn't much of a chase. And all it's just rather watching them fly parallel until an eventual interception at the end. It's not like the Franklin had some great mission here. The destruction of the Enterprise, however, is excitement from the moment the swarm approaches to the moment the saucer crashes into the planet. With its massive destruction, it's got space battles, gun battles, hand-to-hand action. The stakes are high, the ship's being destroyed, the crew is being taken, and chaos is everywhere. We don't know how or if our crew will get out of this. It's insanely exciting to watch and to experience, and by the time it's over, even we as just viewers are out of breath.
Time. Okay. All right, great job, guys. Bringing the judges. I think we can all agree, well, except for maybe Kirk, according to Brian, that Star Trek Beyond slaps. That movie is dope. And now I've lost my marker.
I'd also like to say the reason I chose Star Trek is so that I could specify Kelvin so that he wouldn't give me OG Star Trek.
I figured.
Preemptive strike.
That's fair.
It's the same reason I took directors away from us, so I wouldn't get Kurosawa or Romero.
I could have just done horror.
You could have. I thought of that, but I'm like, maybe he won't think of that.
Yeah, man, it makes me sad we haven't gotten another Star Trek movie since then. That movie was so good.
I like all of them.
It goes up for me every rewatch.
Oh, I like all three of them. People hate Into Darkness. I dig it. I like all three of them, but
I like it.
I like it a lot. So, okay, and I love Wrath of Khan. Anyway, Mark, you are kicking us off on this one.
We're gonna wait till like Kirk pops on the cam, or I was
I
gonna
think
go.
he can hear you. He just had to.
Yeah, I'm here.
I didn't know, but
No, you're fine.
anyway, it was wasting time. I ended up going with Kirk. This one was really close. I was honestly, I feel like I was kind of leaning Kirk the whole time, but Brian, I think, kind of came at him, like threw some interesting hits into his argument. I think at the end of the day, because I feel like Kirk does Kirk's weird argument of like kind of, well, it's exciting just because like it works somehow, and like it kind of like one of the main points that kind of brought me home to that was the sabotage thing. Like Brian kept trying to knock down the sabotage thing, and like Kirk's kind of come back, well, like it is kind of pandering, but it just kind of works and it just fits the scene, and it is a callback to just earlier stuff, and like it was a weird point that just kind of resonated me for kind of the whole fight, and just kind of gave at least a tone of like just how just in general, like that final Beyond scene is just more exciting.
Coho, your thoughts?
I never thought I'd live to see the day where Kirk made the "shut up, nerd" argument, but it's pretty wild. I also went with Kirk. I thought Kirk did a really good job of explaining, like, kind of taking Brian's scene and explaining why that made his even better, and kind of put Brian at this disadvantage of like trying to differentiate it again. But I think Kirk did a really good job of building his scene out to the point where I was almost excited of just listening to him pitch it again. So I thought he did a good job. Both did great.
Okay. My vote doesn't count. I also went Kirk. I thought this was really strong in Kirk's favor on this one. I thought Brian did a great job of explaining a scene to me, but I thought his takedowns of Kirk's were not his best argument. I thought Kirk did a really good job of you guys talked about the sabotage scene a lot. The thing that I kind of hung on to with Kirk was like, we like to see our heroes triumph, and in this scene they are kicking ass and it's awesome. And while Brian's scene is exciting, it is more exciting to see the heroes triumph. I hung on to that. I enjoyed that part of the argument. So I went with Kirk. So that means Kirk is up 2-1. But we have 2 prep questions remaining. So we're going to move on to the next one, which was drafted by Kirk in the category of classics. The question is, which classic actor has the best filmography? Kirk, you get to kick this one off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think when you're talking best filmography top to bottom, you got to go with Cary Grant. Cary Grant, obviously one of the all-time greatest leading men ever, romantic lead comedy. He did that. He did thrillers. He did drama. He did it all. But, of course, we're not just talking about the actors themselves, but the filmography. And I believe that his filmography, it spans pre-code to the birth of New Hollywood. And I think throughout that, you get comedy, you get drama, you get war, you get romance, you get adventure, you get mystery filler, you get a little bit of everything. And you also get this massive amount of star power that his filmography brings, with stars, some of the most exciting and biggest and historic names that span the first 50 years of Hollywood's history. And I think because of all that, Cary Grant has the best kind of smorgasbord kind of filmography where you have something to pick and choose from at any time, a lot of different interesting things that you could check out and lean into, and it goes really deep.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Brian. Brian, you have 1 minute to open when you start talking.
Jimmy Stewart is the one actor who towers above everyone else when it comes to his complete filmography. Greatest Christmas film ever? Check. Some of the best Westerns ever? Check. Some of the greatest suspense films? Check. Screwball comedies and dramas? Check and check. Stewart's career covers every genre: comedy, drama, mystery, thriller, musicals, rom-coms, westerns, biopics, crime, war. He worked with all the best directors: Alfred Hitchcock, Frank Capra, Otto Preminger, John Ford, John Huston, Billy Wilder, George Cukor, Cecil B. DeMille, and co-stars like John Wayne, Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, Dietrich, Gene Kelly, Jack Lemmon. It goes on and on. Stewart's top few movies alone would be enough to put him on the Mount Rushmore of actors, but he has dozens of great films that people love. And dig deeper into his lesser-known films, and you'll find plenty more gems you probably haven't even heard of. Stewart's filmography is as complete as you get. It's lengthy, it's impressive, and most of all, it's full of films that are beloved by audiences.
Time. All right, guys, this is exciting. This one's going to be fun. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
I would say you're right. Top of the list, you have some really great films with Stewart. But I think once you get out of his top 5, top 6, you really see some drop off. He did work some great directors, but once he's not working with those great directors, you see a diminishing. Stewart, I love the guy. He had 2 speeds. He had aw shucks, all-American guy, and he had bewildered guy in over his head and some combination of that. And I know we're not just talking about the actor themselves, but what they can do, comments on what their filmography looks like. And I think Grant himself had so much more range than Stewart that it makes his filmography so much deeper.
Well, I disagree completely because Stewart, you're still hitting hit films way down the list. Cary Grant, once you get past the first few, his is the one that gets thin. When I was looking through filmographies, I sorted them by popularity to see which ones are most beloved by people. By the time he hit like number 15 in Jimmy Stewart's, I was still getting How the West Is Won and The Best Picture, Greatest Show on Earth. By the 15th on Cary Grant, you're getting Johnny Depp's obscure Arizona Dream and Steve Martin's Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, where it's just archive fitted.
Those are classic. Those don't count.
But they're in his filmography. But that's what I'm saying. The films he's actually in rank below those films for people. As far as range, I think Cary Grant has a far more limited range. He's basically playing variations in the same character, even if he's doing comedy versus like Hitchcock movies. It's kind of the same oldie way of talking, the same character, whereas Stewart is much more versatile. The Stewart from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Philadelphia story is very different than him in like Destiny Rides Again or Winchester 7-3, or even like as a murderer in the Thin Man movie that he did.
I think I think Stewart has an energy to, again, you're bringing up movies that don't even count on this, but I think, if you, again, most popular, who knows what that is, but if you're talking about the best movies, the deep, Grant goes deeper, and Grant has, obviously he brings the same energy to every role, his energy that made him so popular, but I think he's a much better romantic lead. Stewart is kind of an asexual guy, and his romances fall flat. He's a better comedic lead. He does more range in comedy. But beyond that, we're just not talking about them as actors. We're talking about the movies they bring. And like I said, you have so much more with Stewart. Because let's look at it. Stewart, just who he is, the image he projected. He's a conservative guy. He did conservative projects. There's like a lack of edginess to his filmography, where those lesser known stuff, like there's a lot of hidden gems in there because you're getting something different. You're going unique. Like I said, Grant did a lot of pre-code stuff that was a lot of edgier and darker than anything than Stewart did. And you have that throughout. Even later, you look at later in his career in the 60s. In the 60s, Grant's doing Charade, the update on Hitchcock. He's doing satires like Petticoat, Operation Petticoat, and Father Goose. And in the 60s, Stewart's still doing Westerns because he's stuck in the past because the guy couldn't grow or evolve the way Grant could.
First, I don't know what movie you think I talked about that's not eligible. Everything I've mentioned was completely eligible, unless you're thinking Winchester 73. That's the title that came out in 1950. But let's start with some stats here. From the audience perspective, Stewart has the third most movies in the IMDb top 50, with the number 1 and 2 being like Harrison Ford and Robert De Niro, who are not classics. So he's the number 1 classic trick. Critically, he has 6 films in his filmography that received Best Picture nominations, with 2 of them winning. Only 2 Grant films were nominated, and they didn't win. Again, these are not the end all be all, but these are factors when you think about what the public perceives them as far as their filmography and the size and quality of their films. From his peers who voted for awards to audiences, even film historians, Stewart is pretty much universally considered to have the better filmography of the two.
You want to talk about IMDb? We could talk about IMDb top 250 and the mess that is, and just whatever. But you want to talk about those things. I'm talking about who has the best filmography. What am I going to sit down and watch top to bottom? And it's definitely Cary Grant, because once you get through those top 10 or whatever of Stewart, you get a lot of boring. You get a lot of samey westerns. You get a lot of boring biopics. You brought up yourself, Spare to St. Louis, Glenn Miller story, stuff like that, where he's doing really boring stuff. With Grant, you get so much more. You get movies like Gunga Din, which is like a satirical war movie, adventure movie. You don't get that. You have even his bigger stuff, like Stewart doesn't have Arsenic and Old Lace. Like, he couldn't pull off that kind of comedy. Plus, you want to talk about star power, like just some people that Grant brings in his movies: Ethel Barrymore, Charles Lawton, Cary Cooper, Mae West, Ginger Rogers, W.C. Fields, multiple Katharine Hepburns, Ingrid Bergman, Marilyn Monroe, Terry Curtis, Sophie Lewin, Audrey Hepburn. He brings these names into his filmography, and you get all these different movies with him. Yeah, I mean, again, top of the list, maybe I want to watch Stewart better. But we get moved down to movie 40, 50. I'm much more interested to see what Grant did down there than...
You can add all the adjectives like boring and samey in front of the things you say, but a lot of those movies are great. And yes, he did a lot of Westerns, and the Westerns were great. He did a lot of comedies. The comedies were great. He did a lot of dramas. The dramas were great. They were very different characters, no matter how you try to make them perceive in the eyes of the judges here. He was very better. And these actors started about the same time. And you wanted to talk about the length of his career. Mine went 20 years farther than I can't talk about the later movies. I can't talk about his later movies, but you just want to talk about the breadth of his career. That's how much he went. You want to compare their Hitchcock movies: Vertigo, Rear Window, Rope, Man Too Much. 2 of his absolute best and 2 very solid ones. Cary Grant has North by Northwest, which is solid, but then 3 that are considered mid-tier Hitchcock at best, with things like Suspicion and To Catch a Thief and Notorious. And I just disagree with everything you've said.
I think you want to talk about top tier. I mean, North by Northwest, one of the best Hitchcocks. But like I said, you keep staying at the top of Jimmy Stewart's because that's what you have with Stewart. Grant has some
time. Sorry that I laughed, but Brian, just saying, I disagree with everything you said.
It's true.
Oh, that made me laugh. I should clarify. Kirk talked from about 3:30 to 4:30. I threw up the let your opponent talk, so I gave Brian a minute there at the end. So we went about 30 seconds over, just for clarification. So Brian, you are going to close first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Rear Window and Vertigo, Philadelphia Story, Harvey, Anatomy of a Murder, Rope. You can't take it with you. Shop around the corner. I'm not going to list them all, but we're barely scratching the surface of his list here. It goes far beyond the first 5 or 10. He has dozens and dozens and dozens of great films that are beloved by people. With a career that spanned more than 50 years, Jimmy Stewart gave us everything from award winners to crowd pleasers. Films that made you laugh, made you cry, made you cheer, tense, up, get angry. His is a filmography with depth and breadth that covers it all, and featuring almost every major director and co-star of the era that you would want to watch. Cary Grant was in some great films, but his list is dwarfed by Jimmy Stewart's, and his variety of roles and genres was limited at best. James Stewart has Cary Grant's filmography beat in sheer quantity, in quality, in variety, in awards reception, in the pedigree of the people he worked with. It covers it all. If you could only watch one classic actor's filmography for the rest of your life, Jimmy Stewart's would leave you more than satisfied.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Both these guys did about 80 movies total, and Brian keeps talking about Stewart's top 10 best. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about if you have a smorgasbord of all these movies, you're on a desert island, you're going to watch all these movies. What do you want to watch? And I want to go deeper with Cary Grant because once you get off that, those top so many with Stewart, you see a drop off where Grant just keeps getting more and more interesting. Even a couple movies that Brian mentioned himself, You Can't Take It With You and It's a Wonderful Life, both great movies, but both very much the same. Stewart's doing very much the same thing. They cover a lot of topics, same themes. When Frank Capra wanted to do something different, he did Arsenic and Old Lace, and he cast Cary Grant because it was kind of comedy that Jimmy Stewart couldn't do. Cary Grant throughout his career was doing different, unique, interesting things. Like I said, in the 60s, he was doing Charade, Petticoat Junction, or Operation Petticoat, things that were burgeoning into New Hollywood. He was growing and developing, where Stewart was still doing Westerns because that's where he was stuck. Stewart was a conservative guy. He didn't do the saucy, edgy stuff that Grant did. I want to go deeper Grant's films.
I don't even know what you said at the end there, Kirk, but strike it from the record. Okay, we're going to bring in the judges. Are you wearing an iHeartRadio sweater?
Yes.
It's called work swag.
It's old work. It's very old work swag.
I was about to say, I'm like, that's like really old work swag, isn't it?
It's like 5 years outdated.
I still have free T-shirts I got when I worked at a video store 30 years ago.
Yeah. Maggie still wears Marcus Theaters shirts. Okay.
It's a very comfy sweater.
All right. I'm ready. Looks like Coho's ready. Mark, what about you?
Yeah.
Who's starting?
I am starting, I believe.
I better sweep you two.
This was great. I actually know these they were talking about movies I know in the classic. It's crazy. You guys keep mentioning movies, and I was like, I've seen that. Holy shit. It's not often I can keep up with the classics conversation. So this was fantastic. I went with Kirk. I thought that listing the names of movies is a absolute, because we're talking about the filmography. It's absolutely a great way to get me on board. Brian throwing out Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life, all the Hitchcock stuff, Anatomy of a Murder. Like, I was like, yes, I like those things. And then Kirk named all of his movies, and I was like, yes, I enjoy those things as well. I thought where the fight kind of flipped was Kirk taking the perspective of like, yes, Jimmy Stewart is in a lot of these genres, but Grant was also in a lot of genres and did them better. He was with directors that Stewart was with and did them later and better because Stewart couldn't keep up. Stewart was stuck in the Westerns. I thought was a really interesting point that I didn't think about. And that Stewart was always, that Cary Grant was always kind of shaking up performance styles while Jimmy Stewart was kind of stuck in one or two different positions. So I think they're both fantastic actors and have a great filmography. I think these are two of the top three choices you could probably make for this question. But I thought that Kirk won this debate. Mark, what are your thoughts as an expert on these actors?
As an expert on these actors.
Yes, you've seen every film in their filmographies.
Every single one, all 137 of them, I think, and whatever. I also am a Kirk. Yeah, this was honestly pretty balanced for me, and it's also one that I think was like I was one where I was not sure kind of where to go with this one because we talked about the just in general, both these actors have a lot of good movies, and like both did a really good job of doing that. And shit, I forgot what I was going to say. I think my main point is I think Kirk did a good job. I think of pointing out at least the variety of Cary Grant's filmography, and just how like it always like where Cary Grant always seemed to be doing different things and just kind of. And kind of, making Jimmy Stewart seem kind of limited in that aspect because, again, you brought up the Western point, which I think is something that I think really worked in Kirk's favor. So, yeah, it just, again, it was another close one, but yeah, like Kirk got it, that one too.
Coho, your vote doesn't count. Where are you going and why?
I actually went Brian. I thought Brian did a better job of arguing the actual filmographies to me about how more diverse the filmographies were and like what you got in each one and why his would be a better choice. And I thought that I think the defenses for Jimmy Stewart kind of overpowered Kirk's attacks on him. So I thought Brian did a better job.
All this being said, I watched Rope this week.
So good.
Great film. I had seen it once before, and it's now having watched it without Boatman nearby, it was very delightful. Okay, so I didn't say that. Guys, your final prep question. Here's where we stand. Kirk is in the lead. He has got a 3-1 lead coming out of that question. So Brian needs to hit this to send it to the bonus round. The question is in the category of Criminal Underworld, which was drafted by Brian. The question is, I'm very excited about this one. What is the most entertaining, dumb moment / scene in a Fast and Furious movie? So, Brian, you're kicking this off. You have 1 minute when you start.
In Fate of the Furious, the Shaw brothers appear out of nowhere to rescue Dom's baby son from Cypher's plane. Let's first set the scene by discussing what's dumb about it. The personal jets with wings they show up on, like their very own Falcon suits. Then they just release from them, trusting the momentum to carry them perfectly into the small cargo door of a moving jet. The fact that these two are helping Dom at all. But of course, we find out that Deckard is only doing it because his mommy told him to, and she also insisted that he bring his little brother along. The central fight of the scene, where Deckard puts headphones on the baby, playing the Chipmunk song, and fights the entire crew of mercenaries off with one-handed martial arts and gun battles, all while holding and protecting this baby carrier. When Cypher asks how he found her, he reveals Dom's necklace, which had a tracker. But why does the tracker have a giant blinking red light on it? And why didn't the bad guys notice that? This is all dumb, but as dumb as all this is, the scene is a ton of fun, actually. Statham has great comic timing, and his interactions with the baby and the baby's reactions are hilarious, smiling and giggling like a goofball as violence is happening all around him. Dumb, yes, but the scene is absolutely entertaining.
Time. Okay. All right. We're going to move over to Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Let's face it, there's rarely a frame in the Fast and Furious franchise that isn't dumb. But what makes it dumb as entertaining is when it's so over the top, crazy action fun that you might forget for a minute how dumb it is. And that's my scene. I picked the tower jump in Furious 7 when Dom and Brian steal this multi-million-dollar sports car, crash into a party that's going on in the apartment that's there. They're getting shot at. They're getting attacked. They drive out of the window, get shot with a grenade launcher, and that actually boosts them into the next building. Next building, there's no brakes in the car, so they have to drive and go through another building. It's really cool, fun, baseline Fast and Furious, like what this franchise is all about. But it's a lot of fun, and it's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense that they would be able to do something like that. But you forget about how dumb it is because how cool and fun it is, and that's what makes it the best entertaining dumb time.
Oh my God, I'm so happy right now. Okay, 5 minute free for it, but one of you starts talking.
First of all, I don't believe for a second that you think it's cool and fun, but this is all part of the debate, so it is what it is. Maybe my favorite part of my fight scene is when Deckard says, you were going to shoot that baby, you sick bastard. And then he says, you're not going to want to see this. Turns the baby around, continues to smash the guy's head into the table, beat the shit out of him, to the tune of the Chipmunks song, Christmas Don't Be Late. Then he stops and smells, says, is that you or him? Him. And I think that was just so much fun. And it was just kind of the topper at the end of the scene, which showed that, yes, it's silly. Yes, it's dumb. Yes, it's ridiculous. But it's fun. And it's something different, which is what this franchise needed after just so many just car stunts.
It's some lame dad humor. I'm sorry. I don't think it's funny. And I think it's not that entertaining. And what you're seeing is basically he has to get from point A to point B in the plane. And he's going to do some generic John Wick stuff between there that we've seen a million times in a million movies now. And he has a baby with him. And the baby takes all the air out of it because we know the baby's not going to get shot, especially when they're playing jokes and songs and little CGI facial expressions. So it's not really, it may be, you may chuckle at it, but it's not entertaining. Where mine is, again, friends, you say there's too many car stunts. That's what Fast and Furious is. It's car stunts. This is one of the greatest car stunts. And again, it's dumb. It's stupid that they would be able to do this, but it's so awesome that they come out. You have Dom and Brian together, and that dynamic makes it more fun and more exciting. And them together, like, oh my God, what are we doing? And he crashes through the window, and like, oh, okay, they did it once. Okay, I could buy that. And oh my God, there's no brakes. Now they don't even have the grenade launcher. They're just going to do it on their own, and they crash into that art installation or whatever and destroy that. It's so much fun seeing that get destroyed. Everybody's weird looks like, why is this car here? So yeah, I mean, mine has a sense of humor too, but not that like lame dad humor that yours has.
The dad humor is fun, and I don't even call it what he's a dad humor anyway. I think it's more cute than anything else. It appeals to younger people more than dads. But what I was talking about with car stunts, yes, Fast and the Furious has always been about car stunts. But by this point, we'd seen 6.5 movies of before this that were just and this is just crashing through things in a different setting. It's just a bunch of overly serious grimacing and downshifting and crashes and gas pedal smashing. Mine is something different, and it's something that's entertaining. And you talk about how they do yours once, and then they do it again, and that makes it fun. Actually, I think the second time takes away from it. Your scene is definitely dumb, but it's not particularly entertaining because of that. Because yes, they got the grenade launcher and they went perfectly land between floors. But then they're smashing through framing and stuff, and they go out a second window and making this that would slow them down, make them at the second window even more impossible. And this goes beyond dumb because it's so unbelievable, and it's so the fact they're just doing the exact same thing over again, you just can't enjoy it.
Well, you say yours is different. Yours is different in the franchise. It's not different in movies in general. We've seen your action scene done so much better in so many different movies. They go out second. They do it. It's over the top. Okay. It's a lot of movies, John Wick and all the John Wick knockoffs and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, the baby, like I said, makes it less exciting. But yeah, mine is they do it twice. because it's like how over the top, how dumb can we get? We did it once. It's like, oh wow, okay, good, we're out, we made it. Oh, thank God! And oh my God, we got to do it again. And it amps up the excitement and the humor. Like mine has that humor built into it. It doesn't have dumb jokes about dumb fart and poop jokes. It has the humor built in because like, oh my God, we're doing this again. And seeing Brian's reaction and Dom being tough and Brian like, no, don't do it, and they do it, and then they crash through and you see the reaction of the people. That's the actual humor built into the excitement.
It's
built
not,
into the
oh
scene.
my God, we're doing it again. It's, oh, we're just going to do that exact same thing over again. I mean, it was hard to believe once, let alone twice. And they repeat, and they even repeat basically the exact same CGI, slow-mo shots as they go from building to building. It's just they've repeated themselves, and it doesn't feel like it amped it up. It felt like, oh, we're just doing it again. And the scene could have ended, one jump would have been enough, and that would have been exciting. But even if it's exciting, I didn't find these things particularly fun because of that. Mine, you talk about the dad humor, you tried to brush off, the baby and the fart and poop jokes and stuff, but that's what, it's the juxtaposition of the violence happening and then this innocent baby giggling and listening to the Alvin the Chipmunk song. That's what makes it fun. It's something different, which is good to have something different within all these car crashes.
Again, I'll go back to what you were saying. Like, how over the top can we get? How dumb can we get? Let's jump a car from one tower to another. Let's jump it through two towers. That's even more dumb and more over the top. That's kind of the upping the stakes. Like I said, in the first one, they had that grenade launcher that like helped them. Now they didn't have that. So how are we going to get through? And it's just fun to watch them. It's not just the action of it. It's entertaining to watch Brian and Dom's dynamic and how they, how they work together. And Brian all freaked out and Dom just doing his Dom thing. And like, we're doing this. We're doing this. That's a lot of fun. Seeing the party get crashed and destroyed is a lot of fun. Seeing all the stuff get destroyed in the museum is a lot of fun. Where yours is just one point A to point B and fart jokes.
That Dom Brian are actually the exact same as every other film.
Time. Okay. We're going to start with Kirk. Kirk, you have 1 minute to close when you start talking.
Brian uses words like cute and fun to describe his scene, and I guess those can be considered entertaining, but it's not what I'm looking for in a Fast and Furious scene. He, like I said, we've seen his fight scene. We may have not seen, and we've seen there's some of that fighting in my scene. Actually, now I think about it, Statham does some of that fighting in my scene, but we've seen it maybe not in Fast and Furious, but we've seen it in John Wick and the million John Wick knockoffs we've had at this point. So it's nothing fun or unique to see. My scene amps up everything that's great about Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious is always about taking those car jumps, those car tricks, and taking it to the next level. And mine, and how big can we get? How dumb can we get? How over the top can we get? And that's what mine does. It does the double jump because the double jump is more over the top and more stupid. And again, he says Brian and Dom has been through the whole movie. Yeah, and people love it. And that's why people keep coming back. That's why people are so devastated when he passed away, because we wouldn't have that dynamic anymore, because they love it and it's entertaining. So this is everything that's great about Fast and Furious, ratcheted up to 11, doing something new and different with the car stunts, as we've seen before.
Okay, we're going to move over to Brian. Brian, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Anyone who's ever looked at Kirk's letterbox knows he hates fun, so I don't believe for a moment that he enjoyed the tower jumps. And that scene only fits half this equation of this question. It was dumb for sure, but not all that entertaining. While jumping skyscrapers, it also firmly jumped the proverbial shark into unbelievability and makes you just roll your eyes. Then it has the balls to immediately repeat itself to its further detriment. The Fast franchise has always taken itself too seriously until, F9 went too ridiculous and dumb, but Fate of the Furious was ridiculous, and I know a lot of people don't like that entry. But a scene like the baby rescue managed to be an oasis of pure fun and entertainment in the middle of it. Like Deckard said to the baby at the end of the scene, told you this would be fun, and it absolutely was. This scene was unique in the franchise and not just more car stunts like every other action scene in the series. When asked for another comparable one, Kirk couldn't actually name one. It is absolutely unique. You have action scene in John Wick, but there's no baby involved. Jason Statham kicking ass alone is always fun, but to have him doing it all while holding a baby, set to the tune of Alvin and the Chipmunks' Christmas Don't Be Late, that's entertaining. And every time they cut to that baby's reaction, it was pure gold.
Time. Okay. Bring in the judges. Okay. I'm ready. Co-host ready. Mark, you good?
Yeah.
Coho, you're kicking it off.
Fast and Furious is fucking dumb, and I love that we were arguing it, and I love hearing both of them have to argue anything positively about the series. But I thought that they both had a really unique approach to what dumb fun was and what was kind of the more entertaining. And I heard Brian's pick, and I rolled my eyes thinking this is going to be, I don't know how he's going to argue this, but I think he won it for me. I thought I was surprised by how well he sold me on why the baby broke up the action and why that made it a bit more palatable and like played into the dumb fun, but made it more interesting than any other car chase sort of thing. And I thought he took down the cars through the towers in a way that I didn't totally like expect. I was like, how are you gonna take that down? I thought you take it down. So Brian wins my point.
Yes, I agree. I love that this happened. And that it was recorded. I love this franchise, even though I dislike many movies in the franchise. A lot of people hate Furious 7. It's great. It's the first one I saw in the theater, and it deserves your love. Both scenes, incredible. The cinematic gold. When we were talking about a best action director earlier, like we should, anyway, I went with Brian. I thought that, like Coho, I thought Brian just did a really good job of talking about his scene. I think Kirk, painted the picture of the jumping car scene. It is maybe the most ridiculous thing other than Dom Toretto stomping the street or whatever in that movie. It's maybe the most ridiculous thing in it. But I hate the Fate of the Furious. And Brian picked the one scene from that movie that is super entertaining. And I think that Brian did a good job of saying, like, they didn't talk about it much in the Freeform, but Brian kind of talked about, like, how, it's bringing the Shaw brothers together. And I remember seeing that in the theater and being like, Luke Evans, I love you. You're beautiful. And they're together and it's awesome. And I thought that Kirk did a good job of kind of bringing that Vin Diesel and Paul Walker, Jesus, chemistry together in his scene. But I thought that Brian just did a better job of talking about the overall entertainingness of his scene. Kirk kind of using the dad humor, poop jokes, whatever. Yeah, you could argue that, but I think Brian did a good job of saying like why it was still entertaining nonetheless. So, Mark, your vote doesn't count. Where are you going?
Yeah, look at that. Another clean sweep. Brian. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kirk broadened the points that I think he kind of had to here. It just, I don't know, like it just, Brian's pick, I think just kind of fits this argument just so well. And I think he added in elements to it that I don't think you would necessarily think about. And I mean, they use a baby in an action scene. And then like, he brings up, Brian brings up, just the point that we just kind of think about. Yeah. Like, well, them jumping the tower is cool. We see car action in Fast Furious like all the time. Like what really makes this one just stick out over the rest of them? Like mine has like these two guys rescuing a baby on a plane. Like, yeah, just there we go.
All right.
I love how Brian brings up Letterboxd reviews. Like 50% of this game isn't lying.
Okay, so it is 3-2. Kirk is in the lead. I would like to say though that Mark's vote there, though it did not go to Kirk, it was the 300th vote in a match for Kirk. So Kirk, the first person to hit 300 votes in a match. That's very exciting. So what that means is, Kirk, you've played a lot of matches. So it is 3-2 in favor of Kirk. And here's what's going to happen. We're going to go to the bonus round. We've got 2 bonus questions ready for you. One from Fandom, one from Mazone. What we're going to do is I randomized what is going to come first, Fandom or Melee. Then I randomized the categories remaining that weren't drafted in the main round. I wrote questions for those categories, and we will present them here tonight. So 45 seconds to start for you guys, 30 seconds to close. What else? Oh, whoever says their answer first will be going first. All that. You fucking get it at this point. Okay. Any questions as we get started?
Okay. Wizarding World, let us concede.
It was one-off Wizarding World, and I laughed. I was like, damn, that would have been funny. Okay. This is also going to be mildly entertaining, but the first one was Fandom. That was randomized. It was Fandom. I was almost Wizarding World, but it wasn't Wizarding World. It was Disney/Pixar.
Oh, great.
You have kids, both of you. Your question is, who is the best Disney animation or Pixar lead character? Again, who is the best Disney animation or Pixar lead character? All right, so Brian spoke first. He picked Woody. Kirk picked Flick. So I'm going to take Mark and Coho off. I'm going to stay on screen to give you guys your countdowns. Brian, because you spoke first, you're going to be going first. You have 45 seconds. When you start talking, time is yours.
So Woody in Toy Story is a fun character. He's got a lot of great lines. It's voiced greatly by Tom Hanks, but he's also the emotional heart of this story. He's got his relationship with Andy. He's the leader of the toys. He helps throughout the arc of his stories. He conveys everything from loyalty to friendship, from loss, perseverance, sacrifice. He learns and teaches all these things to children who watch this character. He's an integral part of the lives of everyone he comes to contact with, whether it's a relationship with Andy, and then after he leaves him, when he goes to Bonnie and becomes an integral part of her life. With each of the toys, the original group of toys, and the ones he meets along the way and teaches and takes into the group and becomes a leader, becomes someone they can rely on, somebody he can teach. And he just is a great character because he's very positive, he's a great role model, and he's so effective on everyone around him.
Time. Kirk, 45 seconds.
I think the problem with Woody is, as Brian said, he's so dependent on the characters around him. Flick is a character who goes on the hero's journey completely alone. He is beat down, he is insulted, he is disrespected, but he always remains positive. He's inventive, he's creative. He uses his abilities to the best of his ability to save his people who reject him. It is up to him to save the colony, to come up with the ideas to influence people, and he does that on his own. He is the best character, he's the best leader, he's the best hero, and he does it by himself because he is the one that everybody rejects, but he's also the one everybody has to depend on at the end because it is his ideas that bring everything together. And I just think it's just so much fun to watch him. He's such a joyous character because he never gets down. He always stays positive and is always looking out to do the next best thing.
Time. Okay, Brian, 30 seconds.
Flick is a fairly bland character who doesn't actually get to do that much. And when you talk about he goes alone on this journey, he doesn't go alone. I mean, he takes off alone, but he meets new allies and friends along the way who help him on his journey, who help him meet his goals. Just like Woody along the way. He's not dependent on everybody else. He is affecting everybody else. He is the center of this universe and everyone around him. Yes, he meets new people. Yes, he gets new allies. He gets new friends that help him along the way in his, just as Flick does. But he by himself is still already an interesting character in the way he acts towards people, the way he talks, the way he takes care of people, the way he's loyal to his friends and is willing to sacrifice himself. He affects humans and toys alike. It affects their lives because he is a great character and a very positive character. Flick is just kind of a forgettable, neurotic ant that goes on this journey for nothing.
Time. Kirk, 30 seconds.
Well, Flick does gain new allies and new friends. Is his journey. He is leading them. He is the one pushing the things forward. What is Woody without Buzz? If you take the character away, who is he? And he talks about how positive he is, how much of an influence he is. A lot of the Toy Story movies are them fixing problems that Woody caused. So Woody is a lot of the source of the problem. He's not a source of the answer. He learns a few things along the way, but he is usually the cause of the root of the problem, oftentimes, that the other characters have to solve, where the other characters, through their ignorance, are causing problems, and Flick is the one who saves it, always through his, and he goes through this journey to save his entire colony, save his world, basically. That's why he goes through it, where Woody is just a problem character who everybody else has to help.
Time. Okay. It's fun being able to see Brian want another, 10 seconds or whatever there on that one. Oh, I don't know why I did that. You're staying there. Get out of there. Okay.
Just take comfort in knowing that Kurt hates speedruns as much as I do.
That's fair.
Does anybody besides Coho like them?
I don't hate doing them. I felt like I was pretty good at it. But
You were good at them, and it annoyed me when we played.
that's fair. Okay. Who is starting this? Mark?
Mark is.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah.
All right. First you go. How's it going, Brian? I think he brought up the point he brought up what you need to do with Woody. The centerpiece of the franchise, the heart of everything. He's ultimately the driver of the action. I think Kirk brought up some decent points about Flick. Although, because there was a part, at least in Brian's closing, I don't think he completely sealed the deal. Like, Kirk could have come back, and then he kind of threw in this weird point about Woody being the causing of the problems. I'm not sure what he was talking about there. He didn't name any examples, so he has just ended up going with Brian on that one.
Coho.
I only had 15 seconds.
I also went with Brian. I agree in the case of Brian doing a really good job of explaining what he needed to with Woody. I thought what Brian did really well was preemptively getting ahead of what he thought Kirk's rebuttal would be and kind of knocking down a lot of points Kirk could have made. And I think he kind of ended up addressing some of what Kirk ended up bringing up, in the fact that, like, Woody affects the world around him, Flick is affected. I do think Kirk's closing was good, though. I do see where he was coming from. I just think Brian gave me more.
Yeah, Woody's an asshole. Like, if we really like Mark's being like, I don't know, I guess he did not address it in his argument. So from that perspective, I agree with you. But Woody's a prick. I love him dearly. I only wish the best for him. But he's a douche. I went with Brian. I thought that Brian had the better argument. Actually, trust me, I would have loved nothing more than to give Kirk the point here, purely because I love it when someone picks an out of left field pick like Flick and is able to win. And I love A Bug's Life. I think a lot of the community does. But I think that movie just holds a special place in my heart. I think I just love the character. I think it's a good pick. But I think that given the time that was allowed, the double 45 and 30, Brian just did a little bit more for Woody than Kirk did for Flick. So that means we are all tied up 3-3. We're going to a final speed round question. It is from the world of Melee. Category that was randomized. It was alluded to earlier. It is horror. The question is, what is the best 2020s horror film? What is the best 2020s horror film?
I'm going No One Will Save You.
Okay.
I'm going to go with The Substance.
Okay. This is, I like it. No One Will Save You versus The Substance. Brian, you spoke first. You get 45 seconds when you start talking.
So in 2023, Hulu dropped a movie with basically no promotion called No One Will Save You, starring Caitlin Dever. This whole movie is basically told from her perspective. She's basically a character who is in every single scene of the movie. The whole movie is shot with no dialogue. I think it's like 3 total words of dialogue in the entire movie. It's suspenseful. It's beautifully shot. It's basically she's trying to escape these alien invaders who would come and they're basically taking over the town. And she's already isolated. She's already alone. And she needs to find a way to fight and survive without the help of the community, because she's shut off from the community, who has basically shunned her because she accidentally caused the death of her friend, and she kind of isolated herself, and the town is turned against her. This whole thing is basically a metaphor for that same isolationism as she tries to basically survive in this world, as well as take care of herself all on her own. And by the end of it, she's basically, it's a metaphor for us. She's found a place for herself. She's found acceptance in this world. The special effects, the suspense, everything about this beautifully shot as well.
Time. Kirk, 45 seconds.
The Substance is one of those great classic horror movies where it goes, yes, over the top with its effects and its body horror, but it also has some really great things to say. Great performances by Demi Moore and Margot Qualley. You have really great references to Cronenberg and Kubrick and all these things. But the really cool thing is, like, you also have quieter moments where it's really just about the horror of aging. Beyond the stuff we'll talk about, there's a moment with Demi Moore where she's getting ready for a date, and she just is unhappy with how she looks, and she keeps making herself look worse and worse. And it's horror in a different way that you really feel. It's not just in your face. It really makes you think about real life, horrifying things that are going on. And I think that's what horror movies do best. And I think that's what this movie does really well, is it captures both great over the top horror, but also like real personal stuff that you can think about and really feel.
Time. Brian, 30 seconds.
Oh, I thought I was done. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want 5 seconds?
No. I thought I might be a little bit on delay. I thought I saw the hands close. I'm sorry. I'm done. Go ahead.
You're good. Okay.
You good? Okay.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Brian. Yep.
I think The Substance could have been a great horror film, and for the most part it was, but as you said yourself, it is over the top. I think it finally jumped the shark in that last act when it went kind of over the top ridiculous with not only the creature, but then with it melting into the star thing at the end. I just thought that stuff was a little bit too much and kind of took you out of the movie, kept it from being a classic. Plus the fact that it really doesn't make sense that why Demi Moore's character would even want to do this. She gets nothing out of it, because when Margaret Qualley's character's there, it's basically she's not aware of what happened until the next day. She doesn't get to experience the fame. She gets nothing out of it, so it doesn't make sense why she would even want to do this.
Kirk, 30 seconds.
The overtopness is what makes it classic, and what people love about it. You don't really need no motivation. This is a fairy tale. It's a fable. There's really you have to plug in, your own ideas of things, because it's not really about real life. It's, like I said, it's a fable about growing older. No One Will Save You. The gimmick of the silence is kind of dumb, because there's so many places, even though she's alone, she would still be talking and saying things. Also, it's trauma is the real horror, and we've seen that a million times over the past 5 or 6 years, and it's just tired and old, and it doesn't do anything new or creative like The Substance does.
Time. Okay.
Great match, Kirk.
You too, Brian. Either way.
Same, bro. Okay. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. It's me, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no. Mark went first last time. Okay. I went with Kirk. I thought that Brian's setup of No One Will Save You was fantastic. Really painted the picture for me on the film. Then Kirk comes in with his 45 seconds and does the same thing for The Substance. Now, I thought that Brian bringing up, they kind of jump the shark at the end of The Substance works. But I thought that in the end, Kirk's closing his final 30 seconds, using the time to go into why the horror, and he did this a bit in his 45 as well, but talking about why the horror is more than just the body horror and the but it's also just like the horror we don't think about type of stuff. And maybe it's petty, I don't know, but Brian didn't have much to say about his film beyond the opening, and I thought that Kirk jumping back in to be like, we've seen a lot of the no one will save you stuff in a lot of films over the last few years, and there are a lot of moments where the gimmick of that movie doesn't actually quite work, whereas like the ending of The Substance might be over the top, but it works in the context of the film. So this was close. The whole match has been close, but I gave it to Kirk. Mark, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, this was definitely a very good match. Certainly a game of inches, all the way up until now, and I think in this particular case, Kirk edged it out here. I think he brought up kind of what you need to bring up the substance, how it's just it brings in a variety of horror and does it all pretty well. I think Brian set up No One Will Save You very well and kind of made the case for it like being unique and interesting. But I think Kirk was able to just kind of knock it down enough to give him the edge.
Sorry, I was muted. Coho, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
I think the hardest thing, I vote for Kirk. I think the hardest thing with the speed round is that you have to know how much to talk about your own movie and how much to talk about your opponents and finding the balance between the two. And I think that Kirk struck that balance better than Brian. I think Brian really only kind of mentioned his movie and explained to me what his movie was in the opening, and then focused almost literally every other second on taking down the substance. And that left Kirk enough time to just knock down what was said about the substance. He didn't even really need to explain his own movie too deeply, and then turned around and batted down the one thing he had from Brian. And I think that's what it came down to, is just how well the speed round was maneuvered today. So yeah, I went with Kirk.
All right, well, that means your winner and new Fanzone debate champion is Kirk Kowalkowski. We're going to get into post-match interviews, but first I want to start with Coho. Coho, let's get some final thoughts from you while we give them some time to, reflect. What were your thoughts on the match today? I thought this was fantastic. What did you think?
I think that was a great game. I thought both of them really came fully prepared. I think Brian's style and Kirk's style are really fun to see clash, because I think Kirk does a lot of prep and Brian does a lot of prep, but I think Brian formulates out these like statements for opening and closings that are like really well written, that I always find really entertaining. Like when he like brings up his points like that, almost like he like scripts out his argument. And then I think what Kirk does is he's really good at kind of stream of conscious breaking his flow up into the argument, and seeing those two go head to head through this format was incredible. Especially putting them then into a mutual format that they don't feel is their strongest, and they split, I think is what's really fun. I think these guys are so fun to watch. I would love to see them fight in a title match again. I think they're both phenomenal.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Let's go talk to the second place finisher today, Brian Michaels. Brian, really, really phenomenal match. It's always tough going against, a former champion, but also someone who has just been around the game as much as you have. And I think Coho hit it on the head. I think that you guys have a bit different styles, but it kind of came together today in a really magical way. I thought the match as a whole went really smooth, and you guys it wasn't like you guys were fighting over each other, screaming over each other. You guys just came with really strong debates Both of you really strong answers across the board, and it just didn't go your way today. But that's what happens in debate. It's so finicky when different from something like trivia. So what are your thoughts about the match today?
I mean, I have no problem losing to Kirk. If I'm going to lose to somebody, there's worse people. I know that Cody really wanted a rematch, so that would have been fun to be able to play him again the second time too. But for now, I played Kirk a second time. I lost this time. Maybe someday we'll finish the trilogy. I hope someday we do at some point along the line. I guess I'm not completely surprised. I was a little surprised when I lost the Bond question. I thought I had Bond locked, and I lost that one. Was it a sweep? No, I don't think it was a sweep, but I lost that one. But then again, I was okay with that because I was sure I was going to lose the action question. I was going to pick Heat. He picked it. I couldn't pick it. I had to argue against it. So I got that point, surprisingly. So I guess that kind of offset my disappointment in losing Bond. By the time I was down, 3-1, I kind of thought it was over. I mean, I came back, I think it was against Cody and won, a couple of speed rounds. The chances of me winning 2 speed rounds again were slim to none. And I was really unhappy with my performance in that second speed round. The first one I thought I did good. The second one, halfway through my opening, I knew I was fumbling. I wasn't getting the words out I wanted to. I kind of thought it was over. And that's the way it turned out. So it is what it is. Do I agree with all the judges' decisions? No, but that you're not supposed to. When you're the one that gets voted against, of course you don't agree with the judges. But I had fun. I'm just hope it won't be too long before I get to play again. And yeah, we'll see what happens in match number 3.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I absolutely expect you to be back here. I'm glad to hear that you're expecting to be playing again. That makes me very happy. I love seeing you play as well as judge. But do you just want to see the next match UV Kirk or UV Cody, or do you want to play someone new? Like, is there anyone that you haven't played that you're looking for?
Well, I'd love to, just get some squash matches under me. It's I'm playing nothing but title level people, even since the beginning of this
play
run.
Ellie?
What's that? Oh yeah,
you could play Ellie.
She'd probably beat me though. You're voting for her.
Well, that's fair, but I got 2 other judges. She knows the words more, mama, papa.
Okay, maybe not squash that much.
Okay.
But I mean, yes, it's always fun to play new people, and that would be fun to play new people. I do want to play Kirk again at some point. I don't expect that to be my next match. I mean, I assume that if he still has the title next time I come around to it, I'm gonna have to work my way up to it. But I've enjoyed every debate I've had. I wouldn't mind rerunning again. But at the same time, you kind of want to play new people. That's kind of why I liked this has been my kind of second run through debate. Yeah. I got to play all people I hadn't played before. This is only my second lost, so I don't feel like I'm I don't feel like I'm done. I want to keep doing this, but we'll see.
Yeah, you and Kirk have both had incredible seasons. The fight for player of the year for Fanzone continues because
I thought I could have locked it in if I won tonight, but now it's like
yeah, you both are 5-1. You both played really, really great this season, Brian. It was when you said you were coming back to the debate ring, I was super excited. I'm glad you did it because it made the league so much more interesting. So thank you for doing it. And you've been a great champion. We appreciate you being here. And thanks for putting on a great match. We'll see you next season. It won't be that long, Brian, I promise. Let's bring in the new champion, the 2-time champion. I think I might be able to say the first and only 2-time champion. I can't think of another time. Yeah, I'm getting the thumbs up from backstage. The only person to lose it and get it back. So, Kirk, congratulations. You are the Fanzone debate champion. Once again, it's been a long time coming. You lost the belt on February 23rd, 2023. And it is now on the air time, December of 2024. It's been almost 2 years since you've held this belt, but you've been chugging along. You haven't given up. You've played some incredible competitors like Cody, like Coho, like Holtzman. You've just played some incredible people along the way, and you made your way here, and you won the belt again, man. How does it feel?
It feels really good. And first of all, I want to say hats off to Brian. What he did this season was incredible. And just, I think we both left it completely out on the field here tonight. So I'm just honored to play him and, have the chance to take him on at this level. But obviously, he's going to be in this top circle for a long time to come by what he's done. I hated seeing him here, and I love seeing him here because I hated having to play him, but I loved him being here in the league and what he did for it. So congratulations to him and everything he did. I feel great. Because honestly, I didn't know if I could do this again. I didn't know if I still had it to get back to this level after having that year off and losing to Cody twice in matches that I wasn't really happy with. It just I didn't know if I still had this level in me. So to be here again really feels awesome.
Yeah, no, Kirk, it's awesome to witness it. It's been a long time coming, but I think you earned it tonight. I think you and Brian both played amazing games. But like I said to Brian, you both have had incredible seasons. You're 5-1 on the season. This brings your total record. Listen to this: 17-4. You've only lost 4 debates. And you're 17-4. You've got 5 KOs. It's a disgusting record, and I think it's one fitting for a champion. I'm really proud of you, Kirk. Going into next season, there's a lot of things that can happen. We've got tournaments set up. Nick and I have been looking at the schedule. We have a working title that Nick wrote. I'm not going to share it because it's dumb. But Kirk, I think that it's really exciting whatever's going to happen to you next season. We've got some people on the list. Do you want to hear them, Kirk?
Yeah.
You could play Bar. You could play Joe. You could play Rue. You could play Kastner. Or you could... Sorry, Kirk, 1 second. Yeah. Uh-huh. You're kind of stepping on my whole thing I got going on. Okay. Kirk, I guess you're playing Cody. You're gonna play Cody at the beginning of next year. But yeah, I guess you're playing Cody to open the season.
That's fair. That makes sense. Meant to be.
Cody versus Kirk, the third time.
Fourth.
Fourth.
Yeah.
The fourth. Jesus. Yeah.
What America wanted.
Cody, you're cashing in. You've earned a automatic title shot. You want to go up against Kirk, I hear.
Well, I wanted to go against whoever, but Tim hates former champions in this league. He keeps us out and makes us homeless and can't even perform for peanuts. So Brian, we'll see you in September. But yeah, I want to play Kirk. I wanted to play Brian. Unfortunately, Brian didn't win today, but I'll take Kirk on for the 4th time, and then let's do this.
Is it
Romero and Kurosawa. Here we go. Round 4.
Yeah, I guess it would be the 4th because it was the Cody lost, then Kirk lost twice. Now this is the 3rd. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Well, Cody, we'll see you at the beginning of next season. Kirk, thoughts on that?
It's going to be awesome. I'm excited to play Cody again. It's going to be tough. Brian and Cody are 2 tough challenges in this league, I think. So trying to find a way to get over the hump with him again is going to be tough. But before we go, if I could just say something.
Absolutely.
Like I said at the beginning of this match, I think this is the best Fanzone season we've had. And you guys know, it's not just because I'm championed, I'm kind of good at it. This league means a lot to me. And I just think what we saw this season with Brian's run, and him, just the energy he injected in the league, I think really needed. We had some great matches. I think Coho and Rue and Jacoby and Nazario are 2 of the greatest, just normal 3-round matches we've had. Kastner getting to a title match for the first time was really awesome. Seeing guys like Jack and Joe continue to prove is exciting. So I'm just really happy. I'm honored to be the champion of this league and represent this league and everybody that participates. So I just want to say thank you, Tim, for everything you do. Nick behind the scenes, Mark being here so much, Coho as a judge and a player, and Brian as a judge, Cody as a judge. Everybody, I love you guys all so much, and I love all the effort, the work you put into this. And like I said, it was an honor just to get to play for this spot, but to be in this spot now and to represent you guys really means a lot to me.
Thank you, Kirk. That means a lot to me. As I'll take Kirk off. Kirk, thank you. I'll take Kirk off screen. Yes, Fanzone it means a lot to me as well. Fandom obviously holds a special place in my heart, but Fanzone has had a lot of changes over the years, and it is the little engine that could. So I'm glad that we're still here. I agree. I think Kirk is spot on. I think this is the best season of Fanzone we've had. I think it's only going to keep getting better as we keep going, and it's because of people like Kirk, Brian, Cody, all the people behind the scenes. Cody making me laugh, and so I'm super honored. Mark, I was going to give you final thoughts, but I'll still do that. Mark, do you have any final thoughts on the season, on the match? Any thoughts?
This was the ending I think we all deserved. Kirk, Brian had been on a collision course to each other this whole time. Brian coming back, having credit, and then Kirk honestly just looking like vintage Kirk again. He was honestly in control for a lot of this match. He gave us a little bit of a jump scare with the flick pick, but hey, he pulled it off there at the end.
The flick pick. Again, thank you to Mark, thank you to Coho. This has been a fantastic match. I truly do appreciate Kirk and Brian and Cody and Mark and Coho, all the words. I guess Payson, I don't know. I don't like the Mr. Final Act thing, but I guess I'll figure out. He's back there. I don't know. Payson, you're cool, I guess. Everybody that had something to do with this season of Fanzone Debate and Multiplex, we got a lot more coming up in Fandom Fights, in Movie Melee. There's a lot of exciting stuff still happening, so be sure to check it all out here at The Final Act. I have been Tim. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.